What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV, aka Darth Apocalypse. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Jeremy Tyler for the $40 donation via the PayPal. Much respect to him for showing love to Too Raw for TV. I truly appreciate it, brother, for showing love, and I love the video topics that you guys be having. So, one of the criticisms that we have for today's basketball, world, for lack of a better term, and it's very disgusting, is the lack of professionalism that we see with certain athletes. That's something that seems to be missing. Like when we watch these players come to the arenas, they're wearing I don't know, it looked like something out of Parliament Funkadelic sometimes. Sometimes these guys look like they walked out of, a Bill Cosby Sidney Poitier movie, clashed with, astronaut helmet on and some cowboy boots. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's like these people are, from another, another dimension sometimes. But I think, a lot of that is, I don't want to go too far off into another type of conversation in this particular video, but I think some of it's part of the agenda. A lot of these players are not dressing themselves. A lot of these players before, the NBA culture under David Stern was more business-like. Today, every day is casual Friday with these players. Adam Silver's way too liberal in his personal leanings. And it's way too liberal in how these players conduct themselves as far as the culture is concerned. But also, you got to look into who are actually dressing these players. Who are the ones who are selecting and suggesting what these guys wear? These NBA players have become ingrained in a totally different culture than the ones that they grew up in. I'll just put it to you like that. But a lot of these guys also don't know how to enunciate or properly express themselves in a thoughtful manner. That's another lost art. You rarely have an athlete who knows how to conduct themselves in an interview. And Michael Jordan is one of the few guys in the last, I'd say 25 to 30, 25 years definitely, as far as NBA players who knows how to conduct themselves in an interview. Kobe Bryant was another one. Charles Barkley isn't a thespian, and you can excuse the grammar errors, the grammatical errors he makes, because he's real, But hey, that's not the A all be all, or so I was told. What do I know? Kermit the Frog said goats have antlers. But no, seriously, I was watching an interview from more than 20 years ago. It was from February of 2004. It was an ESPN interview, and Ahmad Rashad was the host, and Michael Jordan was part of the panel. This was shortly after his retirement from basketball. And it was 4 other Jordan brand athletes. One of them was Serena Williams, who had become a huge sensation at that time, changing tennis with her power game, with her combination of power and speed, and of course, her fashion sense, and of course, her being an inspiration at the time. And this gets lost in historical significance, she was a person who was making it cool to be thick. Because at that time, people got to remember, a lot of black women felt a lot of pressure to quote unquote lose their ass. You know, it wasn't acceptable culturally to be thick. People like to assign it to Jennifer Lopez, right? But Serena Williams took what Jennifer Lopez did and put it to another level with her curvaceousness. And while you had certain individuals who would critique her and say she was fat, the black community back then, although we were already starting to become a little bit more segmented, we were firmly behind Serena in more ways than one. And we stood for the sister like, no, this is what we like. You know, now Serena Williams has gone off to Lululand in some ways now. But, back then, we love Serena. Derek Jeter was another Jordan Brand athlete in this interview. He was at the peak of his powers at the time, 29, 30 years of age. Roy Jones Jr. was just a couple of months removed, not removed, excuse me, this was a couple of months before he would suffer his first loss to Antonio Tarver in their rematch. But at the time, he was still undefeated, although he looked a little shaky in his last fight in November of 2003 against Tarver in their first fight. And then of course you have Warren Sapp. At the time was playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think it might have been like about a year or so removed from his Super Bowl championship. One of the things I noticed about Michael Jordan in the interview was that he seemed to be a sage for sound advice um, when it came to how to conduct yourself as a celebrity, um, how to approach winning, how to deal with losing. Um, you know, how to deal with life. I mean, he just seems like a wise Yoda. And when you listen to Michael Jordan, it's like listening to an older version of Kobe. And that's why Kobe was so successful. That's why Michael Jordan was so successful. And that's why LeBron James has failed, in comparison to those guys, because of the wisdom and the intelligence. And every athlete that I heard, listened to, I should say, they all are intelligent. That's one of the things I noticed about every one of those successful athletes. And success usually correlates, at least it used to. Success used to correlate with people who were both intelligent and put the work in. Or maybe I should say the other way around. Success and intelligence usually correlates, and hard work usually correlates to success. And that's true. But in today's society, because everything is now pushed to social media, you can have initial success off of shock value or from, aesthetic qualities like being attractive, beautiful. Uh, but that's not always sustaining. It's not going to sustain itself if you don't have the drive to put the work in still. It's not going to last. Um, but yeah, the thing that I noticed about in that interview, is how professional they were, man, in comparison to today. It's I can't describe it. It's hard for me to describe. Like when I listen to those athletes give advice, they're talking about things from their perspective as far as being athletes, but it's also things that you could incorporate into your own personal life to make yourself a more successful, you know, uh, businessman, or a more successful cab driver, or a more successful grocer, or more successful janitor, whatever it is that you do. You can listen to what these guys are saying, and you can incorporate these things into your life and make yourself a better in whatever you need to improve on. Better husband, a better mother, a better wife, a better parent, a better child, whatever. Today, you don't get that. It's not, you don't, when I listen to these people give interviews today, it's not from a place of self improvement. It's not from a place of, any type of positive feedback. It's more of, it's more of pandering to our worst instincts now. It's all about gossip. It's all about maliciousness. It's all about rage baiting. It's all about pushing the boundaries more toward what can I say that's going to get me views in the short term? What can I say that's going to get me as much traction as possible right now? Let me say something ridiculous that's going to push people off, piss people off. And a lot of people don't quite comprehend because more and more people that's on social media are younger and younger. They don't get that this is a game. They think that these are people who are saying what they really believe. So when you have a moron who gets on social media and say, "Hey, if you're attracted to black women, you must be gay because black women are ugly." If you have someone to say, "Oh, anybody attracted to a black man must be into bestiality because black people are not human, especially black men." These are things that people say that they know are going to be extremely offensive, and social media lets them get away with saying it, and they're going to have an immediate impact as far as viewership, revenue, or you know, AdSense, which money earned. And hell, sometimes people, even if they get into some type of physical altercation, they know now with the play that happens where these people get these GoFundMe's and they gonna get paid. They gonna get paid for doing nothing. And that's the culture we have now, man. When I used to listen to these athletes in the past, they always preached hard work, working hard, doing the best at whatever you can do, working hard and doing the best at, and trying to be the best at whatever you do. Work ethic, it pays off. Now it's more about scams. Uh, do as little as possible and try to take as much as possible. Shaming others who try hard. Victim mentality. Um, you know, blame someone else when things don't go right in your life. If these are the things that I see, even with athletes, Russell Westbrook is shamed because he's not a great 3-point shooter. Never mind the fact that this guy has had multiple surgeries and came back and played hurt all the time, but he could be pulling that low management crap. So really, honestly, you really don't have a problem with low management. A lot of people, you just like to use that low management argument as a crutch to hurt some athletes that you don't like, but you ignore when someone that you do like is committing the same, I don't want to say crime, but the same, you know, you know, crutch of low management. You don't have any, you don't keep the same energy. You know, but yeah, the way that these athletes at that time, the way they conducted themselves, and the way that they were professionals, man. They were professionals, and this wasn't that long ago. We're talking 22 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. And also, what I took from that interview that I watched again, and it's on YouTube, is it was refreshing to see all of these competitive personalities: Serena Williams, Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter, Roy Jones Jr., who's absolutely hilarious in this interview. It's an hour-long interview. And Warren Sapp. One of the things that I find so interesting is how these athletes can sit down, all of these black athletes, they can sit down and they're humble enough to listen to one another, learn from each other, and use those tools that they've learned as well as listen to other athletes to try to improve. No one had any hidden agendas. Yeah, Michael was the guy there, but he wasn't trying to be overbearing or make it all about him, like some people we know, you know. And it was really refreshing, man. It reminds me of the old days of watching ESPN when you could sit down and you enjoyed those pieces. They were entertaining, but they were also educational to an extent. I'm not trying to make it PBS, but you could learn some things. There was some very good nuggets of wisdom, in particular from Michael Jordan. And Roy too. Roy had a lot of good advice. He kept it real. He said something like, "Look, man," he said, when it comes to signing autographs, he said, "Hey, everybody in their heart, they're not going to sit up there. They're not going to admit it, but everybody would like the feeling of having someone walk up to you, ask you for their autograph, ask you for your autograph." Um, he said that everybody would like that. Not to try to sound like you have a huge ego, but yeah. And there's also another thing that Roy Jones said in this interview that I think is very, very it resonates for today. And I'm gonna do a video about it after this. Right? It is. It just goes to show you that a lot of these athletes today, they don't say anything, but they see the play and they know a lot of these athletes are cheating the game. A lot of these athletes today are cheating the game, man, and they think they're gonna get away with it, but the game will always come collect. It's gonna come collect. But anyway, that's all I got to say. What you guys say?